is now as not self, as anatta. And if we just hear or consider seeing which sees visible object, it's not enough. So the understanding has to develop deeper and deeper to really eradicate the idea of a self. So this is the purpose of the details. This is the purpose of hearing that after seeing, there are two more moments of consciousness that are the result of karma, and then there are wholesome or unwholesome moments of consciousness that follow, which are cause different from result. So we learn about more and more details, but for the purpose of understanding, there is really no I that does anything, no I that experiences anything. So the details are important, but when we realize it's for the purpose of understanding life now as not self. And it doesn't matter whether we call it Abhidhamma or Sutta or Pariyatti or anything else. It's just detailed for the understanding of life now as directly realized by the Buddha.
I find it helpful to think of the Abhidhamma as a distillation of everything that's in the sutta. A distillation that is, compiled, a condensed, not condensed, but everything together in one place, rather than a bit in this sutta, a bit in that sutta, and which is inevitably the case, because when the Buddha taught the suttas, he was teaching to individuals who needed to hear certain things and not other things. But the Abhidhamma collects it all together.
Is it useful to know Abhidhamma to correct misunderstandings? So we see a lot of misinterpretation of the teachings, a lot of wrong practice. Do you use those technicalities of Abhidhamma to overthrow those misconceptions, if you like? Is that an advantage of knowing the details as well?
When you say no Abhidhamma, what do you mean by no Abhidhamma? What does no Abhidhamma?
Well, I suppose that if you know the detail, for example, the idea of trying or selecting an object, going to a special place, you can refer to the Abhidhamma to show that the beginning must begin with detachment. So awareness is accompanied by detachment. So you could use the details there to kind of show that this is the wrong practice.
But I don't think that is no Abhidhamma. To me, seeing now, hearing now, attachment, aversion, the realities now, each one is Abhidhamma. So knowing Abhidhamma means understanding at this moment. If we just use the book knowledge, the book theory to show that the practice is wrong, it's like a theoretical discussion. It's not knowing Abhidhamma at this moment. I just want to say hi, Maeve. Lovely to see you.
Hi, Maeve.
Hi, Michael. Yes. So, Nina, do you have anything more to add about what it means to know Abhidhamma, or for people who are new here, Abhidhamma just means the teaching.
Yes, people think only of the book, but it is really about this moment. So it's good to talk about seeing and hearing all the time, because we are seeing and hearing now, but we forget that it is not in the book, as Ajahn so often reminds us. It is this moment, and we talk about this moment, but it can be very vague when we say this. So it's good to discuss this more, and I find that questions from beginners, especially, or from children, are so very, very helpful.
By the time we recognize, say, this moment, it's already gone quite a while ago already. So how is it, how can there be awareness of actual awareness of this moment, when there's usually wise reflection after the moment has passed.
Well, this is where we're talking about the, sorry, someone else was about to speak. Anne, were you about to speak? This is why we talk about different levels of understanding. So in the beginning, as Alan was saying, it's not direct understanding of seeing or visible object that we've heard about. There has to be the wise considering about the nature of seeing, even though the moment of seeing itself has gone. But as understanding develops, it develops to get closer and closer to directly understand the reality as it is.
And understanding it arises is conditioned to arise, not because we are trying to understand particular reality or we're focusing on what is appearing at the present moment or anything like that. So that's the function of understanding, to understand what is presently appearing. There are certain conditions for understanding to arise, and those conditions need to come together in order for there to be understanding.
That I understand, but there never seems to be an understanding of a moment directly when that moment occurs. It's always recognized, say, if there is an understanding of a moment, it always arises after the moment.
Then it's not actually the understanding Buddha spoke about in that case. It's conventional understanding of, oh, that moment was kusala, or that moment was thinking about seeing, or something like that. So it is the understanding conditioned by having heard the Dhamma and considering what's been understood theoretically. That is possible to condition some direct understanding of not a moment, but of a reality that is arising, that is appearing at the present moment. I think that's important to understand, or to keep in mind, that Buddha didn't teach understanding of present moment. He taught understanding of a reality appearing at the present moment. Yeah.
It doesn't matter that it is already gone, because it can be very close afterwards and the characteristic can still appear. And it is so important to know that seeing is not thinking about the people and all the things that we notice. And if we don't have wise reflection about the difference, Panya can never develop. But it all depends on Panya to condition the right awareness. But it's better not to think too much about it, because then there will be, how can I, and I have to try, and is it possible?
And that's the trap of attachment. For anyone new, Panya is understanding. So that's the trap when it's, how can I understand exactly the moment when it arises? That's the trap of wishing to try and experience it, not understanding of reality of Dhamma as it is now.
True, right. Thank you.
Getting back to you, Alan, on the question on the Abhidhamma, is there a need to try to deal with the Abhidhamma separately from the suttas? Is it something that has a particular interest for you?
It occurs to me that without a basic core understanding of the Abhidhamma, that you cannot understand the suttas. So it's a question of how can you understand reality without the Abhidhamma. So for example, the very beginning of Satipatthana is knowing what the object is, which is kind of what we get from Abhidhamma, isn't it? We see all these lists of the realities as opposed to concepts. So that is critical to the understanding of the suttas, to know the difference between what is real and what is a concept, which comes from the Abhidhamma as from my point of view, or that's the way I see it, that understanding is very difficult to get from the suttas alone. That if you just read the suttas,
I think it's there if one knows where to look for it. For example, the Full Understanding Sutta in Samyutta Nikaya sets out all different dhatus that are to be fully understood, are the elements, and also aggregates. The way dhammas are classified, conditioned dhammas are classified in different ways, and the detail of those classifications can be found in the suttas, but one wouldn't necessarily know where to go to look to find them. So that's why I refer to the Abhidhamma as a distillation. But I think in practical terms, as you and I did, we learnt a lot of the Dhamma from discussion like this. We didn't have to go to the Abhidhamma to learn about the object of Satipatthana because we had it explained to us in the first place.
Yes, I agree with that. I mean, I first came across Buddhism from the Abhidhamma, from the first sort of 6 or so pages, but immediately I had Sarah to explain it to me. So without that, I wouldn't have got the idea of what it was about.
So I think it's helpful to point out that one needs to hear the Dhamma, whether it's the suttas or the Abhidhamma, one needs to come across the Dhamma to have it explained. Again, we couldn't, even just reading the suttas or the Abhidhamma by ourselves wouldn't be enough anyway, would it? Yes. So one has to have the benefit of meeting other people who share the interest and are able to help us understand what it's all about.
And there's some friends like Roti can tell us, some people can study the entire Abhidhamma text, all the details, and memorize them and be very expert at knowing all these details and tables, but still totally miss the point or miss the understanding of realities as not self. Would you agree, Roti?
เป็นภาษาอะไรเป็นภาษาอังกฤษการฟังรู้ใช่ไหมครับ
Sorry, I'm foreigner.
I can hear you, Roti. Can't hear you,
We
Roti.
can't hear you, Roti.
Can you hear me?
I
Yes.
can hear you now, yes.
Hi.
I think I had a problem with my.
ไม่เรียน
There.
Oh,
Legal.
มาเหมือนกันจากอังกฤษจากเนเธอร์แลนด์จากอังกฤษ
How about you,
I
Nave? Do
could
you have
just
any
hear John's
comments?
voice then.
มากันอยู่ที่ออสเตรเลีย
Ajahn, please go ahead. We're hearing you. Please speak.
คนไทยเราก็พูดได้
Thank you. Ajahn, can you hear me? We are hearing you. Please go ahead.
Joshua, John?
Are you talking to me?
Yes. Hello, Ajahn. Welcome. Very nice to hear you.
Yeah. What are you talking about now? About reality right now?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that in order to understand reality, it's now at this moment. And if there is no hearing about the teachings at all, it's impossible to understand what is now which appears. No understanding. What is true, it's real. So we can learn and consider the truth of it, whether it's true or not. Truly, we don't just go on passively feelings of considering the characteristics which now seems, And this is the study of the teachings, not the truth, but the reality like now. Is it clear to you? Can we?
Yes, we can hear.
Okay. Yeah. So whenever we talk about Dhamma, don't forget that it's now at this moment, and so many things just arise in free without any considering about the characteristic at all as our reality. So life is just a moment, and in that very moment, so many things condition that some can appear and some cannot appear. For example, when we see what about the citta before seeing and after seeing? So only some appears because of condition. But the Buddha taught us about all kinds of reality just the way that there is anything that is unknown, not able to be known as it is. So understanding that which appears to another like that which experiences. So it can appear as it is the self-reality in the meaning of experiencing. For example, seeing things, that which can be seen, even that only this, it takes long time to be truly understand that it's just that and previously already no one to cling to as what is not what is real and what is not at all. Is that which needed to return it anymore, or even again, even when it's in some silent after it's new reality all the time as it is following. So this is a way to understand how much that's the perspective of reality. And if you think about it, we can think of the word just to remind this moment as it is as nothing. So the point is to understand that every appearance is nothing. So we can understand by oneself how much understanding is really is.
Thank you, John.
So very little and listen again and again before it can condition just a little understanding. From time to time, we don't know how long it will take from this moment to the moment that begins to understand the characteristics of action, because the self is of the fulfillment. With the kanda, so one thing that even right now, they do not appear as they are as nothing, but this meaning is the meaning of somewhere in waiting, because they do not appear as the habits.
And John Alan had a question he was asking before about understanding Abhidhamma. Can you repeat your question by John Alan?
Yes, we have to begin from the word Dhamma. Is there anything here now at this moment? This is the study of the Dhamma which is given at this moment. There is a reality appearing just one at a time from minute to minute. See anyone yet, but we need to understand the truth whether it's true or not. If we read it right now, we see that there is also thing after the eye. It arises and falls with very rapidly. Maybe we can imagine how fast it is, because whatever appears has to impinge on the eye. Simply to advise no shape, no form, no limit by yet. So right now, there can be a little understanding how fast and how rapidly that arises and falls. So we learn just one reality which can consider, which we can consider that is true and is unknown. That's why, how can it be known? It's always wrong. Thinking again and again, considering, we cannot be possible this, that's my understanding. So understanding can be from theory, which can condition moment of direct awareness, but one has to know the difference between the theoretical understanding and the direct understanding. Even right now, see, one knows that seeing things and this will appearance, this is intellectual understanding. So it's the early moment of the understanding of whatever appears. No selection by conditions in order to begin to understand the unnothingness of everything from the very beginning of now. Even we talk about visual object and seeing as seeing is not visual object because it experiences them, and the visual object cannot experience anything at all. This is heard from time to time, but this is an early moment of beginning to understand. And at that moment it can be thinking, and then it cannot be just very directly understanding the mechanism, but it conditions the moment below to understand and sees the difference between the direct understanding and the thinking about it. So it is the development of understanding whatever appears as laksa at this very moment.
If we don't understand the reality which appears now, that would indicate that there's not been enough intellectual understanding to condition that moment. So is there something wrong with our understanding, or it just hasn't developed enough, or what? So it's the balance between the intellectual understanding and the reality now. There seems to be a balance there between how the details that we need to learn and the reality which appears now. This is this was my original question. How much detail do we need to know?
Okay, we need to understand this moment. Don't forget, not other meaning, but this very meaning of seeing a useful object. And it's not I who can do that, or who can do it at will, but from hearing again and again, they can be thinking about it, even there's no hearing about it. But they can be conditioned to think that what is here is about me, so just now as reality. So if the sati sampajanya or satipatthana does not arise yet, because conditions are not enough yet. So right understanding knows that this is not satipatthana. So when time comes, waiting for satipatthana to arise by conditions, we used to say by condition, everything arises by condition. But the understanding of condition does not arise. As long as there is just the eye full of ignorance, not understanding whatever appears, there's no debate arising in following way by now and rupa. So these are now all relatives, chitta and chitasikas, especially the Brahma and the Manasikara and other chitasikas, are now developed by themselves. Not anyone can. So it's not I who is now developing, but what is said now, and there is understanding. And the Panya, right understanding, and other chitasikas, which arise with Panya at that moment, develops now. So hearing and understanding can appeal to Panya as it is a looking understand of that which is now appearing. And this is the summary of Dhamma from Pariyatti to Patipatti before it can be Patipatti. That's number one. So the understanding of meaning should be fully established from the very beginning, from Pariyatti, so that it can condition the mind that to be. That's the reason, because of conditions, not everybody. To be aware of anything no selection. No one can select because actually it arises by conditions. It is a reality that appears as just as it is, like visible object, no correlation to it, but as just that which appears as it is. It's like the reality. At that moment, no idea that it's there. So fast moving. So everything now which is appearing as something but not as it is. So the way to eradicate or eliminate the idea of self is so really doing something. That's why it is one of the core negative. It's not easy to understand, but this is the way. Like other way of doing it. Just understanding. And it has to be from the very beginning, from hearing, from seeing, and before it can be the idea of not being at the beginning. It takes 1 year to do that, or 45 years to read it with understanding to this meaning now as no one. So it's not no one can do that, but realities as no one. So it's life, and life is so very natural. It goes on from one meaning to another meaning without any understanding. So one can see that how far it can reach to understand this meaning as it is. But realities are not developed. No one knows about each function of each cetasika. But great understanding from hearing can be developed. Little by little, so very little. So Loka cannot when understanding is blindly, when it has to be understanding of whatever appears. It's not the idea of self, because even thinking is conditioned. To care about realities with much better understanding or have little understanding. It's so true, so natural, so real. And this is so deep, and this is the depth of the teachings of each one, even reality. See, it is true with life and being, it's real. It's absolutely reality. That's why from taking it from something only gives you understand, and understanding. So it depends on how much it understands from me to me. But be sure that just 1 minute of understanding is not lost. It's accumulated from time to time. It depends on conditions, how much it can be. Not at any speed at all. So just this moment, study Dhamma, talking about Nama and Buddha is this moment.
And Alan, when you talked about finding a balance, but as soon as there's an idea of finding a balance, should we study more details, or should we just reflect on what we read in the suttas? It is the idea of I behind that idea. Even the moment you're thinking, what is the balance? How can I find the balance? It's just thinking that's conditioned. Each moment is conditioned. So as soon as there's an idea, should I come this way or should I go that way? It's not the understanding of reality, it's not self. Michael, did you want to ask something? Michael, it's his first time to join us today.
Sorry, so can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, yes. Michael's completely new, Jan, so to the group. So do you have any question, Michael?
I think there's a lot more here to unpack for me. It's the first time I've heard a lot of the dialogue and the terminology. I'm familiar with some of it from when I have made some inquiries earlier in my life. And I'm struggling to hear some of the technical dialogue, just it perhaps is where I am. I'm going to thank you for inviting me and would like to join again. I'm going to go do a little bit more reading at this stage, and hope to join you the next time you all meet.
So, Michael, in brief, what we're talking about, because you came in just after we'd started, and with a lot of Pali terms which you're not familiar with, but in brief, we're talking about what life is at this moment. So we're saying that we think that life is different because of the coronavirus and using Zoom and not having meetings and different parts of the world. But actually we're saying that before or after any time there is just seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, thinking in life at this moment. And we're used to the idea that I can see, like now I can see many faces on the screen, or I can see the surf out of the window. Michael's also from Manly. But what we're saying is seeing just sees what is visible, and it's not I that sees. It's just a moment of seeing which arises and falls away. But without the development of understanding, it can never be known. So when you hear about the realities in life as being
ท่านอาจารย์ได้ยินเสียงไหมครับ
not things, not self, just moments of seeing which sees which seeing, moments of hearing which just hear sound. Does this make sense to you?
Of course, yes. It's very everything you've said is very
ท่านอาจารย์
digestible.
ได้ยินเสียงไหมครับ
And so, for example, now the
รู้สึกว่า
moment
รอบ
touch
ๆฟังไม่ได้รู้สึกรอบๆท่านอาจารย์จะมีลมพัดไหมครับ
what
ท่าน
is
อาจารย์ครับ
experienced at this moment when
ถูกต้อง
มีเสียงลมมันเข้ามาเต็มๆเลยครับแต่ว่าไม่เป็นไรผมจะมีไมค์ท่านอาจารย์ไว้ก่อนแล้วก็ถ้าเขาถามท่านอาจารย์ผมค่อยเปิดไมค์ท่านอาจารย์
Michael was asking about bodily
ครับเพราะว่าลมเข้ามาในระบบ
So
เยอะเลยครับท่าน
at
อา
the
จารย์
moment, say you're sitting on a chair, for example, what is experienced at the point of contact between the body and the chair?
Yes. Earlier on, everything you've just mentioned, you and Sarah have talked about is very digestible, and I'm conscious of there's a lot of people in different levels of understanding and engagement with this discussion and formal discussions. So I'm somewhat aware of my own ignorance and how that may not be very helpful in this conversation. It was more towards the terms of Dharma, which I've heard before, and some of the other terms that I've heard and have very vague understanding of. And I almost feel like I would be more valuable, perhaps, for me, if you're hearing me, to maybe spend some time just having a look at the basis of the philosophy and some of the touch points.
About the basis of the philosophy is that it has to come back to this moment, because that's all there is. We know what's happened's gone.
Yes,
and so at this moment, the seeing, as you agreed, it just sees what is visible. We think we see people and trees and ocean, but it's just what is visible. And then there's thinking about the surf outside, the lifeguards, the announcements we're hearing, but it's just what is visible that's seen now. And at the moment of hearing now, it's just the sound that is heard. We think we can hear people's voices, we think we can hear different words, but it's just sound that's heard. So life is just in this moment, a moment of hearing just that which is heard for an instant. And that's the world at this moment. The world is not coronavirus and the ocean and Zoom discussion. The world is just a moment of seeing, a moment of hearing, and many moments of thinking about all sorts of ideas. And when I asked you about the touching, it's the same. We think that we can touch a computer, or I can touch Jonathan, or I can touch the chair I'm sitting on. But at a moment of touching, where is Jonathan? Where is the computer? Where is the chair? That is just in our imagination, because at the moment of touching, what is touched, what is experienced? Hardness is touched. Softness is touched. but is there any computer touched? Is there any iPhone touched? Is there any Jonathan touched? So Buddha's teaching, no matter whether we call it Abhidharma or Sutta or use Pali words or English words or Vietnamese words, it's just about life at this very moment, just a moment of touching, a moment of experiencing hardness and then gone, just for a moment, no one there at all. So this is the basis of all the teachings, of everything we hear and discuss. Does that make some sense, Michael? Did. And Trim, do you have anything to add?
I'm just listening to the conversation, Kunsara, and I think it's about, as Nina and Thanajan would emphasize, that it's about understanding, and understanding arising from, at first, from the intellectual level, from listening to the Dhamma's word, to the Buddha's words, and that listening and careful consideration give rise to a kind of understanding that can condition understanding of moments now, like seeing, hearing, as not self, little by little. And that's why, I think that's why a lot of us come here to listen to the Dhamma. And that's how Abhidhamma help us in understanding that nobody is really there, nobody doing anything. It's just Dhammas, being Dhammas, and conditioning various Dhammas, whether it's the good Dhammas or the bad Dhammas. So I think it's just about patience, and patience to listen, and patience to understand that whatever one needs to understand is whatever already here and whatever already now. But it's also the function of Panya.
And I'd like to get back to a comment Alan made, or a question rather, how much detail is needed. There isn't an answer to that, because we don't know what sticking points are for our understanding to develop. If we knew that, then it would just be a simple matter of looking up the relevant details, wouldn't it? But the fact is that there's no way of knowing how much detail is needed, because it varies from one individual to another. But all we can say is that if one is interested to hear more, then one studies more. And if having heard that, it may be a condition for reflection at some later time. And this reflection can condition awareness and understanding to arise, but no one knows when that will be or what will be the object. But it's not a question of doing such and such in order to have more understanding. It's just a question of following one's interest, the interest we all have in learning more about the Buddha's teaching. Actually, the level or the amount of understanding, awareness and understanding that arises is not of great significance, because what is more valuable is having the interest in the first place in the Buddha's teaching, and studying it, discussing it, thinking about it, considering it as we go about our daily life.
Do you have anything you would like to say or to address to Ajahn or anything? You have to unmute.
I'll unmute.
Okay, go ahead, Neil.
Thank you. I was just saying that it's lovely to see you and to be able to join together. It's yes, it's one of the upsides of what has changed. I suppose just listening to Michael talking about having that sense of being ignorant about what was being discussed. I suppose, and maybe it touches on what Jonathan, I I guess ignorance is always considered to be something we don't want to have. But in actual fact, insofar as ignorance is also real, it can be very useful because it's almost like the attachment that you referred to, I think, earlier to understanding, Sarah, that, there's this, how much understanding is there and what do I have to do to get more, etc., etc. But in actual fact, feeling more relaxed about the level of ignorance that is far more accessible, actually, because it's just, it's pervasive in terms of how we experience the world. So instead of perhaps feeling that we don't like our ignorance, in fact, the level of ignorance that is experienced can be valuable. I'm thinking of a parallel between that and Ajahn wonderful writings on the perfections, which I think are really helpful, because any tendency we might have to be thinking along the terms of, that was a generous act, or that was metta. We've got lots of information about the nature of the imperfections, which my experience is that what was considered to be something maybe wholesome actually falls into that category far more readily. It's far closer to being an imperfection than a perfection. And I'm sort of thinking of the parallel between that and ignorance, that ignorance it's there, and it can actually, I suppose, help to inform us about, we try to seek to know how much we understand is pretty futile, whereas we can actually get quite a lot of feedback about the lack of understanding, which I am coming more and more to appreciate, I think, as time goes on.
And one thing we can say is the more understanding, and the more ignorance is revealed. So it's the more ignorance revealed, the more understanding is there. Before we started studying teachings, we had no idea that there was any ignorance. But now the more understanding, the more ignorance becomes apparent, and more will become apparent.
So it's a paradox which can be quite hard to come to terms with, but I think it's probably necessary to come to terms with that paradox that you've just described.
I would see it also slightly as a concern that we will have with having understanding and what our level of understanding is, and I think that concern is a bind, and if that can be let go, then it's liberating, because it's not a question of having more understanding. It's a question, because that can only happen by conditions, and those conditions cannot be made to happen. But if there's the interest in studying the teachings and having the discussion, and this will condition the reflection that is the factor for the actual arising of the understanding at some time. And that's where naturally taking the object that it is conditioned to arise at that time.
Did you have anything to add about ignorance? I saw Min had joined. Min had a question he wanted to ask about wise considering and reflection. Are you there, Min?
Can't hear you yet, Min.
You can't hear me.
Sorry, not hearing.
Are you speaking? No, later.
Hello, Sir and John.
Yes.
Hi, Azita.
We can hear you.
You're loud and clear.
Good. I have a question about accumulations. In reality, what are accumulations?
For example, attachment now. It's very real at this moment. We hear Ajah's voice, an instant attachment, or we see a picture of a friend, instant attachment. So that attachment now has been accumulated from attachment in the past, and the attachment now will accumulate or condition more attachment in future. So these are the accumulations, all the different wholesome and unwholesome mental factors and the different realities that arise at those moments, the different wholesome and unwholesome realities that arise. These are the accumulations. So after, for newcomers like Michael, after moments of seeing and hearing, there are wholesome and unwholesome mental states arising, such as attachment and aversion are unwholesome states, like and dislike. And wholesome states are ones we've talked about, like understanding or kindness. So these different mental states accumulate when they arise, condition more of the same. So that's why the understanding is so important, because understanding now, the wise considering, the wise reflecting now, conditions more wise reflecting, more understanding in the future by accumulation.
And that's what we mean accumulated tendencies. So the tendencies that are referred to are the dispositions that everyone has. We have different likes and dislikes. We have different things that we get upset about or that we are fond of. And these are the mental factors that Sarah was just referring to. Also feeling, every moment is some kind of feeling accompanying every moment of consciousness, memory, and so on, many different mental factors. But the point is that in life, as we go through life, these accumulate. So when we are born into this life, there are the accumulated tendencies of previous lifetime.
Did you have anything to add? Would you like to add anything to it? Okay, Azita, carry on.
It was just this morning I was going for a walk in the bush, and there's lots of little wildflowers out at the moment, and I sort of focus in on certain flowers or walk past others, and I was thinking, is that sort of accumulations manifesting themselves in that there's a focus on a certain plant rather than another one? Is that like what would happen? I certainly attached to one plant over another one.
The attachment and the interest in the flowers. For example, some of us, Jonathan, may go for the walk and not even notice the flowers that he passes because no interest, no attachment. Or when you go for a swim, some people come back with lots of stories about the fish, and other people come back with stories about the sunrise, or other people come back with stories about the conversations they've had with friends. depends on the interest and the attachment, just like now.
Right, and further into that, if we're aware of attachment, that everybody's got these accumulations, and we focus mostly on our own, of course, but surely that with the growing understanding, you can see that everyone is different, and maybe that helps with being kinder to other people, perhaps, like not getting upset because of the way they are, because the way they are is the way they are. So
it's understanding more about one's own dispositions and how things are affected, how one reacts, can be conditioned for tolerance towards other people.
Tolerance, that's the word. Thanks, John. Yes, okay, that's great.
Attachment now, like no one is choosing to be attached to a picture of a friend or certain words, but each one's attachment is conditioned. It can't be any other way. The same with all kinds of interest and mental states, and it's the same for others. It's not, they don't belong to a person. They are just different realities, different attachments that are conditioned this way or that way. So the understanding of realities as not self actually leads to more understanding and tolerance of others too.
Yes, that's great. That's wonderful. Thank you very much. And thank you for setting this up. It's been really wonderful.
Thanks for joining us.
Okay, see you later.
Does the accumulation condition seeing and hearing, because we see now and we hear now the Dharma, but that's also, we are interested in that. So we've got seeing, which is vipaka, conditioned to experience Dharma. What conditions that? Is that also our own interest? Must be conditioning that seeing and hearing?
Actually, it's quite a deep question. So, like you say, the seeing now arises because of many different conditions. One is the visible object has to have impinged on the eye sense, and the past karma has to condition the seeing now to experience that visible object. But without deep condition about natural dependence, support conditions, those accumulations, there couldn't be the seeing now. So many conditions are involved in order for this moment of seeing to arise. But at the actual moment of seeing, there's no attachment at that moment, there's no interest at that moment, because there are just 7 mental factors. But immediately after the seeing, the interest and the attachment in that object comes in instantly. So we can see that it doesn't belong to anyone, it's just different mental factors arising by conditions. Even in a sense law process, instantly, no one can stop attachment to what is seen now.
Okay. One could say that the object that is seen is not conditioned by one's accumulated tendencies, but the reaction to it is conditioned by accumulated tendencies.
We hear Dharma, so when we hear the sound isn't conditioned by our accumulation, but we are hearing that sound because of our interest. We made the effort to listen to that sound by accumulation. So there is a condition there. It's not the condition, but there are many conditions there to support the hearing of the Dharma. It has to be conditioned by interest as well.
The main condition is the karma in the past that conditioned the hearing at this moment. But as you say, many other support conditions. One can even say in the deepest sense that ignorance, which Maeve and other people were talking about, conditions this moment, because without ignorance there wouldn't have been birth. So ignorance is also said to be the indirect condition for each reality that arises now. Very intricate.
Talking about not the object of hearing consciousness, that is just sound. So pleasantness or unpleasantness of that sound as such, not the content of the what is being conveyed, meaning, but just the sound of the voice is conditioned by past karma. But of course, if we want to speak generally in conventional terms, then enjoyment in a Dhamma discussion happens because of one's interest in the Dhamma, which is an accumulated tendency. If we talk about it on a moment-to-moment basis, then at the moment of hearing, experiencing sound, pleasantness or unpleasantness of that sound is conditioned by past deeds.
So the hearing consciousness which experiences sound, the hearing consciousness is either kusala or akusala. It's either the result of a good or bad deed, but the object, the sound, is pleasant or unpleasant in itself by its heat, just heat alone.
If it's found outside the body just by temperature, or the sound like the sound that's being made now when we speak, conditioned by chitta at this moment.
It's just wondering how the rupa, the sound, the physical object can be pleasant or unpleasant in itself. Because it must be pleasant or unpleasant.
Because it's conditioned by the other physical phenomena that arise together with it. So, for example, if we're not talking about the sound of the voice, but if we were talking about the sound of the rain outside, that's just conditioned by temperature. Then it's conditioned by temperature and the other primary rupas.
Experiencing the moment of hearing consciousness is what is conditioned by past karma, not the actual object. You correctly said it's either the result of good or bad deeds in the past, depending on whether the object experienced is pleasant or unpleasant.
Okay.
Are you ready to ask your question now that you said you would like to bring up? Can you hear me?
Yes, he can, because he unmuted, but we're still not hearing him.
Still can't hear you.
Sorry.
Next time, perhaps.
Excuse me, can I raise my question?
Yes, please. My son.
Son is in Vietnam.
Yes, son.
Yes, I have a question when we learn in Abhidhamma, we know that the Cetasika and mental factor arise with Kusala Chitta and Akusala Chitta is have the same Akusala or unwholesome or wholesome. I wonder, I just know, for example, Chana remembering of the Kusala and Akusala is different, but how we can distinguish the characteristic of this Chana with wholesome and with unwholesome sister? I just know because it's a wholesome Chana because it arises with the Kusala Sita, and it's unwholesome because it arises with Akusala Sita. But in fact, can you give me more clarify how to distinguish the characteristic of the Shanya in each case with the unwholesome Sita and with the wholesome Sita?
Yes, I'd just like to explain in non-technical terms the question that Sun has asked, and Sarah will have some comment, I'm sure. He's asking about the different moments of consciousness, for example, there can be wholesome moments of consciousness or unwholesome moments of consciousness. And the various mental factors that arise with each moment of consciousness are wholesome, also wholesome or unwholesome, depending. So his question is, how can one know? And particularly he's asking about the mental factor of chanda.
No, sanya.
Sanya. Okay,
Sanya.
I wasn't sure about that. Sanya,
Sanya,
which is
memory.
translated as memory. His question is, how can one know whether the memory is wholesome or unwholesome?
Usually sanya is not the reality that commonly appears or is commonly known in life, but what one can say is like now at a moment of wisely reflecting on Dhamma. It's only possible to reflect in this way because of sanya, because of memory. Like Michael said before, if one's never heard about the Pali terms and one hears the word sanya, it means nothing. There can't be any wise considering because one has no idea what is being discussed. But if one has heard about how there is memory at each moment, marking and remembering what is experienced, and how without wise memory now, wholesome memory now, there couldn't be any wise reflection about different realities. So the wise reflection depends on wholesome memory that arises with it. And that memory is different from the memory which arises at moments of attachment or moments of anger, because the wholesome memory is conditioned by the other wholesome factors that arise together with it. It's accompanied by understanding and awareness and wholesome interest and so on. So that memory at the moment of wise reflecting is quite different from the memory at the moment of thinking with anger about something one's heard, thinking with attachment. So even if that reality itself isn't directly experienced, it's clear, it's obvious that at this moment of reflecting, memory of different realities, the memory that life just exists at this moment, is different from the memory when there's just grasping after what one would like, thinking about oneself and one's own self-interest, conditioned by all the other factors that arise with it. Nina, would you like to add anything else?
Yes, because the chitta, or the consciousness, this sanya, arises and falls away so fast, and it's impossible to catch that moment, and we should not try. It is of no use, but it's good to know that it is all conditioned, all anatta, but only panya, when it is more developed, can distinguish between what is kusala, a moment of wholesomeness, or a moment of unwholesomeness. So we should not try to find out.
Right.
So it's right to say that the right understanding, if there's a reality appears as it is now, that is conditioned by sanya of the understanding. It's the root. I mean, we've heard and considered, but it's the sanya which is the condition for it.
Without sanya, there couldn't be thinking about anything. So without memory of what the meaning of the sounds are, what the meaning of the words are, there couldn't be thinking about even the question we've just heard. So without sanya, no thinking of any kind. And then when we talk about thinking, it depends on what the mental factor, the vitakka itself, touches in order to think about. But sanya is essential.
In terms of, say, right awareness, what does it condition? What conditions the right awareness at that very moment? Is it the memory of the intellectual understanding, the memory of the intellectual understanding? That sanya has a part to play in the that moment of insight.
Yes, so that's why the right sanya is often given as the proximate cause of awareness. So without that memory of what is object, what is to be aware of, there couldn't be awareness. And of course, understanding has to be there. Without right understanding of the reality, there couldn't be awareness of the reality.
10 minutes remaining of this session. So firstly, Sun, do you have any follow-up to your question before we go on to someone else?
Yes, I ask more question. It's clear, but I think it's two kind of shanya. Remembrance is a distinction by the other mental state arise with them, or by their own characteristic of each shanya. I want to not for catch up, but I want to understand the difference, the distinction between the two kind of shanya with their characteristic. Can you make more clear? I don't want to try to find out, but I think I think it's different when I want to know the more difference between two kind of shanya.
So sanya is always sanya. It's the reality. It always has the same characteristic. It always has the same proximate cause. It always marks and remembers the object. So it's not two kinds of sanya. Sanya is always sanya. Just like each feeling now is different, conditioned by the different mental factors that arise with it. The feeling with attachment is different from the feeling with aversion, and so on. So with sanya, the sanya that arises with wholesome chitta and mental factors is different from the one with unwholesome, but it's still sanya. It still has the same characteristic, but it's it's conditioned by the other factors. Just like we were saying earlier, the visible object, whether it's desirable visible object or not, is conditioned by the other rupas that arise together with it. The other primary rupas condition that visible object to be different. And so even though it's always just visible object, and so with sanya, it's always just sanya, but it's conditioned by the other cetasikas.
And memory is one of the so-called universal mental factors. And like the other universals, like concentration or contact, it takes its ethical quality, whether it's wholesome or unwholesome, depends on the citta with which it arises. And the quality of the citta is dependent upon the roots of the citta, the mental factors that are the roots. So we won't go into that detail now, but the memory mental factor and the concentration mental factor, they are the same ethical quality as the roots of the citta with which they arise. But as Sarah said, the function or characteristic of memory and concentration and contact is the same, regardless of whether it's a wholesome or unwholesome or resultant mental factor. Citta.
Hi Rit, nice to see you, Rit.
Okay, thank you. It's so clear to me. Thank you. Okay, it's clear.
Anything else, Son?
It's clear to me. Okay,
good. Right. Anyone else have a question before we?
Right. Rit, are you in Cambodia, Rit?
At the moment.
Are you in Cambodia?
Yeah, in Phnom Penh of Cambodia.
Okay, nice to see you.
Yes, nice to see all of you.
You're locked down in Phnom Penh?
Not at the moment. Now we can go outside. We can still hang out.
Good to see you.
I try to use the applications. It's the first time to use this application because I'm bad of technology.
Okay, well you've got it working. You're doing well.
Sweet, yes.
Yeah.
And Tiny Tom and any of the Vietnamese, any of you want to say anything? Good.
Mid.
Who's that? No, that's in the background. And I can see Gern has joined. And Robert, anything you'd like to say, Robert or Gern?
Just listening. Can you hear me?
Hey, you Rob. How are you?
One point I would bring up, Jonathan mentioned a while back about having to listen to someone to grasp the Abhidhamma. I'd just like to say, back in the day, I used to correspond with Nina by snail mail, and I learned the Abhidhamma through reading her letters, actually, her personalized letters to me. So there's different ways people learn, I think.
Absolutely.
In the book, because the Buddha often talks about listening, and we discussed this point with Ajahn one time, and she said, well, listening, it can mean reading, or it can mean hearing, or it can mean discussing, so it's just a broad term, but I agree it can mean writing, or it can mean reading.
Right, yeah, I just sort of bring that up.
Come from association with the right person, is the point.
Sure, yeah.
Different accumulations, like some people have no interest in reading or studying the details in the Abhidhamma, which Alan mentioned, and other people like to read or write. So
Totally. No, that's the point I wanted to bring out. Thank you.
It's a good point.
Thanks, Robert. Yep.
And were you about to say something?
I just want to say appreciate on about online discussion. Have a more chance for listening the Dhamma. And today I have no question.
Okay.
Nice to hear from you.
You can have them ready for next week.
Yeah, thank you.
I can see Lana's there.
Oh, Lana's there.
Yeah.
Hi, Lan.
Do you want to come in, Lana, and say hello?
Oh, that's Leanne. That's Leanne.
Is it? Okay.
Okay, just 2 minutes if anyone has anything they'd like to say before we finish, and then next week, exactly the same details, the same code and everything, and same time. Does anyone have anything they'd like to say before we finish? Vincent, do you have anything like to say?
น่าจะของที่ซื้อมามันมีตั้งอยู่ตู้
Thanks, John.
Hello.
Thanks, Sarah.
Well done for hanging in there, Michael. Well done. It'll be better, easier next week, a little bit each time. Well done.
I had some technical challenges as well, but thank you so much. And
I look forward to you in the hot seat, by the way.
That's okay. No, absolutely fine. Thank you so much.
See you at the beach. Yes, May.
Well, a big thank you to both of you. This will be wonderful, actually. And you'll do it each week?
Each week, same time, as far as conditions go, yes.
So lovely to see you, mate.
Yeah, really great. Yeah, how are you doing?
Just a quick question about Ajah's audio. It seemed to be quite difficult to hear, actually. I don't know if anything can be done about that.
I will mention it to Warasak, who's the one who set it up for her. She's coming in by phone, and it's going via the foundation mixer and so on and so forth. So I think it's a slightly complicated arrangement. It would be great if Ajahn could join from a computer at her home, and I don't know if that's possible, but we'll try and get it sorted out before next week.
But still wonderful to hear her voice.
Yes, but it was, and that's, I think, Michael, why it was a bit difficult to hear her too, because of technical issues, so we're trying to help work on that before next time. Yes. Anyone else have any other last comment?
ประดิษฐ์ไม่หมดเลยจะได้ให้เขาไปทำบ้านที่บ้านค่ะไม่ต้องใส่หมูใส่อะไรใช่ไหมค่ะเพราะว่ามีหมูออฟไข่ ไก่ใส่ไปใบหนึ่งด้วย
Well, thanks everyone. Thank you very much for joining. It's great for all of us, I think, and we look forward to seeing you again next week if you make it.
We're working on the technical issues side, so see you all next week at the same time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye, May.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye ค่ะ
Oh, John, coming in at the last minute.
อาจารย์
สวัสดีค่ะ
Bye, Carl.
ค่ะเป็นอาจารย์ค่ะ
Oh, I'm a modern John.
สวัสดีค่ะ
สวัสดีครับ
อาจารย์ค่ะ
ใครนะคะ
Thank you very much
ท่านอาจารย์วันนี้เสียงเป็นยังไงครับอาจารย์ก็กักไหม
ตอนหลังดีนะคะแต่ว่าลืมไปว่าพัดลมมันทำให้เสียงไม่ชัดนะ
ครับมันเข้าหูเลยครับทำให้คนฟังแบบโอ้โหเงียบฟังท่านอย่างมากเลยครับอาจารย์ครับก็ดีมากครับท่านทุกคนได้ยินเสียงท่านแล้วก็แฮปปี้กันหมดเลยครับ
Okay, sign out.
ตอนนี้ก็ชัดดีเลยค่ะ
ครับแล้วก็ตอนนี้เขาออกกันแล้วเดี๋ยวอาทิตย์หน้าก็คงจะเป็นเวลาเดิมนะครับท่านอาจารย์
11 โมงใช่ไหมคะ
ครับถึงเที่ยงครึ่งนะครับ
ถึงเที่ยงครึ่งอ๋อ
ครับผม
ค่ะ
ก็เปิดอย่างนี้ยนะครับครับผม
ข้างหน้า
ขอบ
ค่ะ
คุณท่านครับท่านอาจารย์ครับมีอีกเรื่องหนึ่งพอดีอยากจะพูดพอดีเมื่อเช้าเนี่ยก็เมื่อคืนคุณวินเซนต์เขาไลน์มาบอกว่าเนี่ยเรื่องบทที่จะอ่านเนี่ยนะครับพอดีจะมีอาสาเพิ่มก็มีคุณแพทนะครับที่เป็นแฟนคุณสันติซึ่งเขาได้ทั้ง2ภาษาเขาอยากจะช่วยตรวจด้วยนะครับแล้วก็นอกจากนั้นก็มีคุณชื่อคุณลิลลี่นะครับที่ผมขาวๆที่ใส่ชุดขาวคนนั้นนะเขาบอกว่าโหเขาแบบกระตือรือร้นมากแล้วก็เอาคลิปท่านอาจารย์ไปทำ YouTube นะครับแล้วก็ดีมากเลยอย่างเงี้ยคุณแพทเล่าให้ฟังแล้วก็คุณวินเซนต์บอกว่าเป็นคลิป YouTube ที่เขายังไม่ได้เปิดสาธารณะแต่ว่าเขาดูแล้วเขาชอบมากเลยก็เลยบอกว่าให้ช่วยกันทำอีกไหมเขาก็ถามผมว่าก็ดีครับหลายคนช่วยกันก็จะได้ช่วยกันไอเนี้ยครับจะได้ช่วยกันอะไรช่วยกันทำมันจะได้ดีขึ้นนะครับผมก็บอก
จะทำอะไรที่ว่าจะช่วยกันเลยจะทำ
ก็คือคุณลิลลี่ก็จะทำเป็น YouTube ซึ่งเขาทำไปแล้วนะครับ
ดีมากค่ะ
แล้วก็คุณแพทนี่ก็ทำเขาจะขอไปช่วยตรวจด้วยเพราะว่าเขาก็ความภาษาไทยเขาอยากจะเข้าใจด้วยเขาก็ได้ขัดเกลาภาษาจีน
ตอนนี้เสียงคุณบริษัทไม่ชัดเลยอ่ะกับท่านค่ะ
เพราะว่าผมเปิดขอโทษครับขอโทษครับได้ยินหรือยังครับท่าน
ได้ยินแล้วค่ะ
ครับก็คือคุณแพทเนี่ยก็จะช่วยตรวจproof ภาษาอีกทีนึงนะครับภาษาจีนให้มันคมมากยิ่งขึ้นเพราะเขาเป็น native ใช่ไหมครับแล้วก็เขาก็เข้าใจภาษาไทยที่ท่านอาจารย์พูดด้วยนะครับแล้วก็คุณลิลลี่ก็จะนำบทสนทนาของท่านอาจารย์ไปทำเป็นคลิปออก YouTube ผมยังไม่เห็นนะครับแต่ว่าคุณวินเซนต์บอกว่าทำดีแล้วก็คุณแพทก็ชมว่าคลิปของที่คุณลิลลี่ทำก็ดีมากเลยนะครับ
ได้
ครับก็ช่วยกันเจริญกุศลนะครับ
เพราะว่ามันทุกคนร่วมมือกันช่วยกันแล้วก็เห็นว่าอะไรเป็นประโยชน์นะคะและอันนี้จริงๆเนี่ยถ้าไปตู้เข้ามาเอาไปมันก็ยิ่งเป็นประโยชน์ใหญ่ทั่วโลกใช่ไหมคะ
ถ้าว่ามันลง YouTube แล้วผมก็อาจจะดาวน์โหลดแล้วก็ส่งให้ทางอะไรของทางเมืองจีนนะครับโยคูครับผม
ด้วยก็ดีค่ะดีด้วย
ครับอนุโมทนา